I want you to imagine a nightmare scenario for a second. And I don't mean monsters under the bed or anything like that.
Or showing up to work naked.
Right, yeah, or that. I mean the nightmare of legacy. Imagine you spend your entire life following the rules. You are honorable, you're kind, you do the right thing even when nobody is watching. You just grind for decades.
Yeah, man.
And then when the end comes, nobody cares. The world just remembers you as a nobody, maybe a vagabond, maybe a failure. It's a terrifying thought, right? To think that all that effort just evaporates into the ether.
It is basically the existential dread that keeps most of us up at night. We all want to leave a mark.
Exactly. But here is the provocative question we are tackling today for you. If the world forgets you, or worse, if the world thinks you are a loser, does that make the life you lived any less valuable?
That is the philosophical anchor for the deep dive we're doing today. We are unpacking episode 2 of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which carries the incredibly evocative title, Hard Salt Beef.
Which, I have to be honest, sounds less like a fantasy epic and more like a review of a really bad airport sandwich. It's not exactly the winds of winter, is it?
It isn't, no.
Yeah.
But as we get into the source material, you're going to see why it's actually the perfect metaphor for the story. On the surface, this looks like a simple bridge. We are just moving our hero Dunk from the open road to the big tourney at Ashford Meadow.
Right. It feels like a travelogue at first.
But if you actually peel back the layers, this is where the story stops being a travelogue and starts being a very complex clash of class, economics, and royal politics.
We are talking about the introduction of some heavy-hitter Targaryens, the gritty financial reality of what it actually costs to be a knight, which is way more than I thought, by the way, and Dunk trying to figure out who he is when the world keeps telling him he's nothing.
And we should probably start right there at the gate, because Dunk arrives at Ashford Meadow feeling pretty good about himself. He has the horse, he has the sword, he has the squire, he is ready to be a hero.
And he immediately hits a massive bureaucratic brick wall. I resonated with this so much. He walks up to the steward to register for the tourney, chest out, feeling like a knight, and the steward basically looks at him like he's a stain on the rug.
This is the first reality check. To enter the lists, you can't just be a strong guy with a sword. You need a sponsor. You need a highborn lord to look at you and say, yes, I know this man. He is of noble birth.
And Dunk, well, let's be real. Dunk is a slum kid from Flea Bottom. His only claim to knighthood is Ser Arlan of Pennytree, the old man who raised him. But Ser Arlan is dead. He's buried on a hill.
And this is where that title, Hard Salt Beef, comes crashing in. Dunk is standing there being sneered at by these stewards who probably have softer hands than he does, and he has this flashback to Arlan. Now, usually in fantasy, when a hero remembers their mentor, it's a memory of a glorious battle or a wise speech.
Right. It's usually like, remember, Simba, you are the king. But here, Dunk remembers sitting by a fire, cold and hungry, while Arlan shared a piece of hard, gristly salt beef with him.
It is a distinctly unglamorous memory. Salt beef is survival food. It's tough, it's preserved to last, and it's usually all poor folk have. But in that memory, it represents total generosity.
Yeah, because Arlan had nothing.
Exactly. He had nothing, yet he shared the very last of what he had with a street urchin.
It's such a tender moment, but it's also heartbreaking because of what happens next. Dunk snaps back to reality and realizes, oh no, the world doesn't care that Arlan was nice. The world doesn't care that he shared his beef.
No, the world cares about lineage. The world cares about your last name. So Dunk plays his only card. He goes to see Leo Longthorn Tyrell. Now, for those who don't know the lore, the Tyrells are a massive deal. High Lords of the Reach. Think old money multiplied by 1,000.
And Dunk thinks Arlan knew this guy. They jousted once. Surely he'll vouch for me.
And the rejection he gets. How did that land for you?
It was physically painful to read. It wasn't just a no, it was a dismissal of Dunk's entire existence.
Yeah.
Tyrell basically looks right through him. He remembers Arlan, sure, but he remembers him as just some hedge knight, a vagrant.
It destroys Dunk's worldview.
Completely. He realizes that to these high lords, the man he worshipped, his father figure, was just a homeless guy on a horse.
It highlights the class divide so sharply. You have Dunk's reverence versus the nobility's indifference. And it forces us to ask that question you posed earlier. What is a legacy? Is it statues and songs? Or is it the fact that you fed a hungry kid when you were starving?
It's a harsh wake-up call. Dunk is spiraling, thinking he's going to be kicked out before he even starts. But then the atmosphere changes. The air pressure drops. The Targaryens arrive.
And this is a massive shift in the source material. Up until now, we've been dealing with muddy roads, inns, and grumpy stewards. Suddenly, royalty. But listeners need to understand the context here because it's not the royalty we're used to seeing in House of the Dragon.
Right, nobody is flying in on a nuclear weapon with wings.
Exactly. At this point in the timeline, the dragons are dead. The last one died years ago. So House Targaryen is in a really precarious position.
They can't just burn people who disagree with them anymore. They actually have to be political.
Precisely. The saying is, the dragon has 3 heads, but without actual fire-breathing monsters, their power relies almost entirely on soft power. Reputation, respect, mystique.
They have to convince the realm that they are still gods among men, even without the dragons to prove it.
And this episode gives us a masterclass in how different members of the family handle that pressure. We get introduced to 2 princes who are basically polar opposites. Let's start with a guy who seems to have the entire weight of the kingdom on his shoulders, Prince Baelor Breakspear Targaryen.
The prince that should have been.
He is the hand of the king, the heir to the throne, and frankly, the sources make him sound like the coolest guy in Westeros history.
And this is a huge plot point, he doesn't look like a Targaryen.
No silver gold hair, no purple eyes. He has dark hair and dark eyes.
Which seems like a minor detail, but in this world, it's a PR nightmare.
It is. He inherited those features from his mother, Queen Miriam Martell of Dorne. And you have to remember, the rest of Westeros has spent centuries fighting wars against the Dornish. There is deep systemic prejudice there. The Blackfyre Rebellion, a massive civil war that happened just before this story, was partly fueled by people who hated the Dornish influence at court.
So Baelor is dealing with what is essentially racism from his own subjects. People look at him and say, he's not a real dragon. He's one of them.
Exactly. Despite being a war hero who actually won the Battle of the Redgrass Field, he has to work twice as hard to get half the respect. He has to be perfect. He has to be the living embodiment of chivalry because his appearance doesn't give him a free pass.
And we see that chivalry in action. There's this incredible scene where Dunk, desperate and out of options, stumbles into Baelor, and Baelor remembers.
This is the character beat that defines him. Leo Tyrell, a mere lord, couldn't be bothered to remember Ser Arlan. But Baelor, the crown prince, the most powerful man on the continent, he pauses and says, wait, I remember him. He broke 4 lances against me at Storm's End.
That is such a boss move. It shows that true nobility isn't about ignoring the little people. It's about paying attention.
It's humility. Baelor vouches for Dunk. He saves the day. But, and here comes the politics, he adds a condition. He tells Dunk, I can vouch for you, but I can't let you use Ser Arlan's sigil.
Because Dunk isn't his blood son. Even Baelor the good guy is bound by the rules of feudalism. He can't lie about lineage.
Right, which forces Dunk into an identity crisis. But before we get to that, we have to look at the other side of the Targaryen coin. Because if Baelor is the best of them...
Oh boy. Prince Aerion. Bright flame. Even the name sounds like a hazard warning on a chemical bottle.
It really does. If Baelor represents duty and protection, Aerion is the living embodiment of the Targaryen madness. There's that famous line in the lore, every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin.
And with Aerion, the coin didn't just land on the wrong side. It fell off the table, rolled into a sewer, and exploded.
Aerion is vain, cruel, and genuinely believes he is a dragon in human form. And the source material spends a lot of time describing his appearance. While Dunk is standing there in rusted mail, Aerion struts in wearing this incredibly loud, expensive armor covered in painted flames.
It's screaming for attention. It's the medieval equivalent of driving a gold-plated Lamborghini and revving the engine at a red light while staring at people.
It is total overcompensation. Baelor commands respect naturally. Aerion demands it through fear and flashy displays. He views anyone of lower birth as well, not even human. They are just props in his play.
And we see the effect this has on his own family. When Egg Dunk's little squire sees Aerion's banners, he doesn't just roll his eyes, he is terrified.
That reaction is crucial. Egg bolts.
Yeah.
He physically runs away. That fear tells us everything about his home life. He knows what his brother is capable of. It hints at the real reason Egg is wandering around with a shaved head serving a hedge knight. He is hiding. He is a refugee from his own family.
So you have Baelor the Protector and Aerion the Predator, and poor Dunk is stuck right in the middle. But I want to pivot here because the contrast between Aerion's shiny, flame-enameled armor and Dunk's reality brings up something I really loved about this reading. The economics.
Yes. This is honestly my favorite part of the deep dive, because fantasy almost never does this. In most stories, the knight just has the armor. The horse is just there.
Right. Aragorn never has to stop and check his bank balance to see if he can afford to get Andoril reforged. He never has to skip a meal to pay for sword polish.
Exactly. But here the sources lean heavily into the financial anxiety. We meet Steely Payte, the blacksmith. And looking at the notes, I kept thinking about the video game Kingdom Come
Oh,
Delivered.
totally. That game where you have to eat, sleep, and repair your boots or your stats go down, that is Dunk's life.
He's inspecting his armor, and it's garbage. It's rusted, it's ill-fitting, it's basically ceremonial stuff he inherited. It's not going to stop a lance charge from a high lord.
It's like bringing a bicycle to a Formula One race.
Mhm.
He needs plate armor. He needs a shield.
Eh.
But Steely Pate the Smith isn't running a charity. And here is where it hit me. Being a hedge knight is basically the ultimate gig economy job.
That is a fascinating way to put it.
Yeah.
How so?
Think about it. Dunk is a freelancer. He has to pay for his own equipment, his own travel, his own food. If he gets injured, he has no insurance. And to even get a chance at a paycheck winning the tourney, he has to make a massive capital investment.
It's a gamble. And Steely Pate is the realist here. He isn't a villain for charging money, he's a working class guy. He says honor doesn't pay for steel. It grounds the story so well. Dunk has to make a choice. And it's a heartbreaking one.
He has to sell Sweetfoot, his horse.
Now, to a listener today, that might just sound like selling a car. But for a knight, a horse is your livelihood. It's your companion. Sweetfoot is the only thing Dunk actually owns. It's the only living creature that has been with him since Arlan died.
It felt like he was selling a piece of his soul. I mean, I got emotional reading it. He promises he's going to buy her back, but you can feel the desperation. He's stripping away his safety net just to buy the tools he needs to do the job.
It raises the stakes from glory to survival. He has to win now. If he wins, he can buy her back with the prize money. If he loses, he's walking. He's destitute. He is back to being a beggar in Flea Bottom.
So he is betting his entire life on his ability to fight. And while he's dealing with this stress, the poverty, the scary royals, the rejection, he finds this unexpected connection with someone else on the fringes, Tansel Too Tall.
Tansel is such a vital character here. She represents the perspective of the small folk, specifically the artists. She's a puppeteer, and the nickname Too Tall is the bridge between them.
Because Dunk is a giant. He's used to looking down on everyone physically. He feels awkward, too big for the world.
Right. They are both physical outliers. They are both looked at as spectacles rather than people. There's a lovely, quiet chemistry there. She treats him like a person, not a brute. And I have to mention Egg's role here.
The ultimate wingman.
He really is. For a little kid, Egg has surprisingly smooth skills helping Dunk talk to her. But Tansel isn't just a love interest. She is the catalyst for Dunk's new identity. Remember Baylor's condition. Dunk needs a new sigil.
He can't use Arlan's winged chalice, so he goes to Tansel to paint a new shield. And the design he chooses, it's become iconic. An elm tree over a sunset with a shooting star.
Let's break down that symbolism, because it tells us who Dunk is. The elm tree. It's sturdy, rooted, protective. It provides shade. That's Dunk. He isn't flashy like Arian. He is solid.
And the sunset feels like an homage to the end of Arlan's life. The sun setting on the old generation.
Perhaps. But the shooting star, that's the key for me. That represents hope. It represents something brilliant passing through, even if only for a moment. It's a very humble symbol compared to the dragons or lions of the great houses.
It marks a transition. He walks into that puppeteer's tent as Arlan's squire, but he walks out as Sir Duncan the Tall. He's finally claiming his own name. He's defining himself.
And it is poetic that a puppeteer, a storyteller, is the one who helps him paint that new reality.
So let's take stock. He has the voucher from the prince. He has the armor, barely. He has the name. It's time for the tourney. And if the listeners were expecting a romantic Arthurian joust where everyone shakes hands, well, brace yourselves.
The source material is very clear on this. The lists are not a dance. They are a car crash. Dunk and Egg are watching from the stands with the small folk, and the description is visceral.
It's violent. Men are getting trampled, bones are snapping, horses are screaming. It felt less like a sport and more like a gladiatorial execution.
And this is the final reality check for the episode. Dunk realizes that being big isn't enough. These nobles he's up against, they are well-fed, they have been training since they were 5 years old with master-at-arms. They have the best steel money can buy.
It's the difference between a tough street brawler and a heavyweight MMA champion. Dunk looks at this violence and realizes, I could actually die out there. This isn't a game.
And this fear leads to the epiphany that closes the episode. And I think this is the most beautiful part of the deep dive. Dunk thinks back to Ser Arlan one more time.
Arlan never won a tourney right.
Never, not once. In the eyes of the competitive world, in the eyes of men like Arian or Leo Tyrell, Arlan was a loser, a failure. He died with nothing.
But watching the senseless violence of the lists, seeing these winners act like peacocks, Dunk reframes the narrative in his head.
He realizes that Arlan's legacy wasn't about trophies. It wasn't about who he defeated. His legacy was saving an orphan boy from flea bottom. It was sharing that hard salt beef.
It's a complete redefinition of success. It's not about being the strongest, it's about being the most decent.
Precisely. The source puts it perfectly. Success shifts from glory to goodness. Arlan didn't need to be a champion to be a true knight. He just needed to be a good man.
That gives me goosebumps. It really flips the whole concept of the show on its head. It's called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, but it's arguing that the truest knights might be the ones nobody knows, those who don't make the history books.
And that sets us up perfectly for the conflict to come. You have the true knights, men like Dunk and Prince Baylor, who understand that duty is about protection and humility.
And then you have the monsters in fancy armor like Arion, who think knighthood is about power and domination.
It is a collision course. You can feel it coming. Dunk has stepped out of the shadows, but he's stepped right into the path of a dragon.
So to recap where we are for you, Dunk has gone from rejection to royal intervention. He's sacrificed his financial security, his horse, his friend, for a shot at the title. He's forged a new identity with the help of a puppeteer. And he's realized that the game he's playing is rigged against guys like him.
That is the perfect summary. He has stepped out of the shadow of the past and into the fire of the present.
And speaking of fire, Arion Brightflame is lurking around the corner waiting to burn everything down.
Which brings us to the bigger picture. Why does this specific material matter? It matters because it dismantles the romantic view of Westeros. It shows us that beneath the banners and the songs, it's all just economics and ego.
And it shows us that sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is just be a decent person, like sharing your rations when you're hungry.
Exactly. It's a story about the cost of dreams. Dunk achieves his dream of entering the tourney, but the cost was his horse, his safety, and his anonymity. He is exposed now.
And once you're exposed to the dragons, well, good luck.
Good luck is putting it mildly.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We talked about how the Targaryens are relying on reputation because they don't have dragons anymore. Baylor is holding that reputation together with his bare hands.
He is. He is the glue holding the dynasty together.
But then you have Arion, so here is the question for you. If reputation is the only power the Targaryens have left, what happens when a dragon like Arion starts destroying that reputation from the inside?
That is the question that haunts this entire era of Westerosi history. When the fear of the physical dragon fades, all that is left is the character of the men on the throne. And if that character is rotten, the whole house comes down.
A cheerful thought to end on. But that's the deep dive for today. We have unpacked the legacy of the Forgotten Knight, the economics of steel, and the danger of bright flames. Thanks for listening.
Keep your shield up.